um, meeting is being recorded. Okay, so does that mean I get started right away? Is that right? Okay, good. Okay, I'm just going to say another opening prayer for our small group together. Dear Heavenly Father, I'm so glad and so happy that you have given me a chance to speak here with all of these brothers and sisters and friends of mine. I am just so honored to be able to be here to talk about you and all the great things you have done in my life, and especially showing all of that through the journey through the universe you have led me on in my life. And yeah, would you please just pour all of that onto as a blessing onto all the people who are here to hear it, that you would describe your own work and use all of that amazing things you have done to bless all those who hear it. Thank you so much, God. Would you please be with us and let all of this honor you. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen. Okay, so I will be sharing my screen right now so we can get started. I have a couple of slides to show with you. I don't have a lot of slides, but this is for the cosmology part. So we'll get started. I wanted to talk to you about a journey through the universe with God that I have been experiencing. So before I get to the God part, I want to walk you through our universe a little bit, just so we know what we're all talking about. All right, so you all know that we have, this is the Earth that we live on. And if you zoom out, let's see where you might be. You might be just one little dot somewhere over here. But if we actually zoom out, we'll see the sun being not too far away, and not too far away meaning 1 light second. Meaning, sorry, 8 light minutes. Let me just explain a little bit, put us on the same page. One light second means the distance that light travels in 1 second, and that's about 300,000 kilometers. So when you're on the highway, you're probably traveling max speed 100 kilometer per hour, for example. This is going to be 300,000 kilometer per second, so it's pretty fast. Now it takes light to travel to Earth. It takes light about 8 minutes. So we call that the distance 8 light minute, right? Good. Okay. So let's zoom out a little bit more. And this is not to scale, but a drawing of the solar system. So you probably all know we have 8 planets now. In my heart, there's still a 9th planet, but doesn't matter. So astronomy now have moved on to 8 planets to give more room to the other rocks. So 5.5 light days is how long is the distance from the sun to the edge of the solar system. So now we're talking about days. It's taking the light 5 days to travel. Okay, now what if I continue to zoom out outside of the sun, so the solar system? So the sun is not the only star in our universe. There are actually many stars, and the closest one to us is actually about 4 light years from us. So we have a triple star system: Alpha Centauri A, Proxima Centauri, Alpha Centauri B, and they even have planets that are Earth-like that orbit around them. So this is our nearest neighbor, okay? But it's gonna take lights even 4 years together. So starting to zoom out, right? Starting to zoom out. Okay, this is not over yet. All right, so, but how many stars do we have in this galaxy? We actually have order 100 billion stars. Okay, billions 10 to the 9. So this is the schematic of our Milky Way. This is our galaxy. It's about 100,000 light years across. So it's gonna take light much longer to go across. And the sun is sort of just roughly halfway between the middle and the edge. Okay, and so this is our galaxy. So you can imagine many, many more suns and many, many more planets going around them. Now, our galaxy is also not alone in this universe. There actually are many more galaxies in the universe. But before we zoom out again, I just want to show you what our closest neighbor look like. This is the closest galaxy called Andromeda. And this is actually about 2.5 times 10 to the 6 light years away. So 2 million light years away now. So light itself is gonna take 2 million years to travel there. We'll probably not get there. Not in my lifetime, at least, right? Okay, so you're ready for the next zoom out? So the next zoom out is that in this universe, we actually have many, many galaxies, and they can tend to group together. And when they group together, we call them galaxy clusters. And these are probably the largest objects that are bound together gravitationally. So they will tend to gravitate toward each other. And if you look at the sky, just in a tiny little field, you will see, basically, if you observe for long enough, you will see all those galaxies pop out, and there's just a lot of them, even in just a tiny little area. Okay, so now what I want to show you is how does this all come to form? Okay, so let me play a little video for you. So, I'm going to decrease the sound so I can talk. Actually, there weren't galaxies in the beginning of the universe. In the very beginning, we had basically just pretty uniform energy and matter, and there were perturbations on top of them. So some places were denser, some places were less dense. What happened is that matter is going to start accumulate toward the places where it's denser, right? Because there's gravity. So you'll start to see things forming and condensing, and finally there will be galaxies and stars lighting up. So there weren't light before. Actually, a lot of this purple is actually there to label dark matter that we cannot see. And then as they decrease enough, they will start to become so dense and so hot, they'll light up into galaxies. So this is sort of showing the evolution of how a galaxy can start to form, all right? And so what I also wanted to show you is that, thank you, YouTube. This is Aquarius simulations. And that was evolving the universe toward about a 250 million years old. And what I want to show you is that notice all this web structure, right? So I showed you early, like a galaxy cluster when there were so many galaxies in them. Actually, there's something called the cosmic web if you zoom out even further. And then so all those brighter parts that you see could be many galaxy clusters. So that is forming the ultimate cosmic web that is found in our universe. Okay, so what is my job? My job is to describe all of this from the beginning to the end on the largest scales using mathematics and a lot of physics. So, but in general, mathematics. So what do I do is that I will start at the very beginning of the universe where things are pretty much uniform, right? You don't see a lot of like over densities or under densities. But over time, like I just explained, under the influence of gravity, things will tend to be attracted toward places where there's a lot of matter, and you start to get more and more structured. And eventually, on some of the structure, there is a galaxy cluster inside which there's a galaxy, inside of which there's a star, around which there is a planet, and on which we were finally born. You and I sitting here together talking about the universe. Okay, so So what I wanted, so what my job is to use, so if this is the flow of time, to use the physics, what we know about physics, about laws of gravity, for example, to be able to predict this evolution, so that I have so that if I have a telescope, I can start looking at what the distribution of galaxies look like close to us nowadays, to infer something about the very beginning of the universe. So let me recap. This is another timeline of the universe starting from the very beginning. Here we have initially inflation, where space expanded so fast that it stretched tiny quantum fluctuations at very small scale that you can't even see, to cosmological scales. And those are the what happened, that those what seeded the initial fluctuations we have in the universe, on which the galaxies and matter can start to fall on. But this period is very mysterious. It only happened in the first 10 to the minus 30 seconds. So 1 second where it goes really quick, but then 10 to the minus 30 seconds is real quick, okay? So imagine the universe has expanded from a very tiny spot to really big. This is that period. So this size basically describes the size of the universe schematically. So it stays, it keeps expanding, and then started expanding a little more recently. We don't have to go into why, due to dark energy. And then what I do is that I'm going to look at the galaxies over here really close to me, because it's harder to observe before, with this satellite mission called SphereX. This is a satellite mission that will launch in about 3 years. We'll hope we'll make it on time. And we're going to analyze what we observe in those galaxies. We can observe hundreds of millions of galaxies and measuring precisely their position in 3D. So we'll have basically like a cube, like I was showing you before. And because I know how physics work, I can basically re-engineer all of that, sort of going back in time a little bit to understand what were the initial conditions when the universe was just being done, stretched out by inflation. And we are measuring a very particular property of the universe there to understand exactly how this process happened in the first 10 to the minus 30 seconds. Okay, so that was my brief overview of what I do as a cosmologist. So I am actually so this is what I do for my work, but it didn't start there. So when I always liked astronomy, but when I was a PhD student at University of Chicago about 5 years ago, that's when I started feeling more and more like I was very drawn to cosmology. I think, and that was also the first year in my 5-year program of PhD was when also I encountered God. So this was a very interesting story because I have never imagined myself becoming someone who proclaims to be religious. I was always raised up in an raised up in an atheist family. I did not have any beliefs. I always actually laughed at people who were religious and believed there was a God. And so I always thought physics was everything I needed, and it is what is going to get me closest to the truth. And I just study physics and I'll be very happy and I'll be good. So this was sort of the story, where the story began. I'm going to stop sharing, so maybe you can just look at me talking. So what, yeah, so let me take. When this first happened, when I was studying physics and I was being led to this Chinese Christian fellowship on our campus, I discovered that I discovered that there is actually a whole new dimension to reality that I was not aware of. And this was basically the spiritual realm. And I did not understand that beyond what we can see, just the physical things that we can touch and measure and calculate, there was something much more, not just to our existence as a human being, but also to the entire reality of our universe. And I think this was, very shocking and also very humbling for me. And God has used many things in my life, including illnesses that maybe Arthur was mentioned before, and very many struggles in my life to bring me to Him. Um, and uh, and actually, one of the things he does uses is that he really took away my talent for a long time, and still had, so that I can be humble before him and learn to seek him as well. So the PhD process was a process of struggle and discovery and being humbled all at the same time. But at some point, I did finally come to acknowledge that there is a God, and I decided to commit my life to God. That was a very joyful moment. But eventually, what I grew in my faith at church and fellowship. I was very joyful discovering God as my savior and as my father. And I studied science at school. The problem is they didn't go together, and nobody was helping me to put them together. For example, my friend at fellowship they weren't physicists. There were biologists, there were chemists, but but there were a lot of professions, but they weren't physicists. They were not asking the same question I ask, like, where is this God located, for example? And all those other big questions that maybe only physicists will think about. And at my school, people were mostly scientists, physicists, so they do not believe in God, a lot of them. So there weren't any way for them to help me about this issue neither. So I was completely alone, and I started, I think, around the third or fourth year of a PhD, really having a crisis about how to put all of this together. One day I walked into a lecture given by a famous mathematician, a mathematics professor called John Lennox. He came to the University of Chicago to give a talk called "Did Science Bury God?" And that was in the middle of my crisis. I went into the talk, and I came out completely different. One of the major things that really struck me was that he said, and I will pose the same question to you. It was very a cute illustration. So he said, suppose that there is a tea kettle on the stove, and the water is boiling, and I want to ask, why is the water boiling? So what would you say? We need to at least have one try.
The fire has brought the water to its boiling temperature.
Yeah, very good, very good. So you obviously have a great gas stove at home, right? Some people would say, it's the electricity heated the wires and metal and heat the water. That would also work, right? So, anyways, we're trying to explain how the water got boiled. And then he said, well, how about this answer? Why is the water boiling? Because I want a cup of tea. So uh, so actually this is also a really valid answer, right? Like the water is boiling because he want a cup of tea. Absolutely true. So when we look at the situation, actually both answers were true, right? They didn't mutually exclude each other at all. What was really happening is that one was talking about the process of how the water got heated, and the other one was talking about the purpose of having the water heated. And so this is similar to what we learn with God from the Bible. The Bible teaches us the purpose of our entire existence, why we were created, and how we are supposed to conduct ourselves and relate to God and come to know Him, and eventually how to be saved and be with Him. And so all these very important purpose kind of questions are explained in the Bible, but it doesn't necessarily explain all the details of how the universe formed. That's the scientist's job. The scientists describe the process of how the universe was created and how we got here, but that doesn't exclude the fact that there was a purpose to all of this. So at the end of the day, science and religion, or this faith in the Bible at least, are answering the talking about the same reality, but answering two different questions. And eventually, I realized that. There was absolutely no contradiction, and in fact, yeah, that scientists tend to ask the why question, but what they really end up answering is the how question. So it's a purpose versus process. So after I figured that out, I was like, okay, no more problem, no more contradictions. But there is still one more problem: is how do they exactly intersect each other? Now they have just given each other room to exist and be very complementary, but how do they intersect each other? In particularly in my life, because if I cannot reconcile that, then I'm just gonna still be torn, or my life will be like sort of separated. And for a while, it was separated in two different compartments. So, um, yeah, one day I was in the string theory class. And if some of you know about string theory, it's basically this very fancy theory, basically the most complicated theory that physicists can come up with to try to describe the universe. It's not in reality yet. It has still a lot of problems, but it's our best to try. For a long time, so that has been my dream, to be sitting in that class, because I will feel like because I always studied so much just so I can get to this point, I would feel like I'm really close to truth. But however, when I actually got to that class, I was sitting in it one day, and I was learning all those great things that I always dreamt of learning, feeling like I'm at the edge, very edge of the frontier of the knowledge. And I suddenly realized one thing, which is I've, I've, I found out that um, everything I thought that I wanted to pursue was actually not giving me all the fulfillment that I wanted. That was the moment in my career where everything I could say, this is all I wanted to pursue, truth through physics. But as I got to that point, I'm standing at the border between the known and the utter unknown, and I realize how small I am. There is no end to being satisfied in this knowledge. And at the same time, during that same class, it's almost like somebody has planned this epiphany for me. I realized that actually there is something that is much more important than this physics dream that I always had. And I realized that the most important thing in life is actually love. I don't know how this change happened when I'm in the middle of a class trying to follow mathematical derivations on the board and suddenly having all those philosophical thoughts, nothing that would provoke anything emotional at all. But I think it is really just being at that point, at that border where you feel like you reached it and you realize, wow, there is much more onto this on this earth. And so I that was a very, very humbling moment. Um, you know, it's like Newton has said, I don't know what I look like to other people, but to myself, I'm just a child playing on the shore, picking up, finding a shell that is smooth or a rock that looks good, and being pleased with it, while there is a vast ocean of unknown, a vast ocean of truth in front of me being unexplored. And so I think, from that moment on, or at least that was a starting point to this journey, I started to become much, much more um, humbled, in the sense that I realized that I do not know everything and I cannot know everything, but God has given me the gift of having a journey of walking right at the edge of the known and the unknown, so that I can always feel his presence and I can always feel how small I am, and I can always be reminded of this creator that we have, and where I am in that entire picture. So I think that really changed not only how I view myself, but also how I viewed my career. So yeah, I think it helped me to see that love was more important than me trying to achieve something. I realized there was a period of struggle uh, before graduating, when you need to choose your next career step. Am I going to become a postdoc in continuing this academic career track, or am I going to, pick another profession? And there were many other professions that would be very cool. There was many different interesting problems, and they would make money, and you go explore the world. You can do that too. um, and I think the at the I think I was really, really struggling to choose which one, because I didn't have a really good reason to do physics. Although it has always been my dream since a childhood, I realized that the reason for doing it was wrong. And this is related to what I was just talking about um, earlier. I realized, after going through the struggle, that all of my life I've been wanting to achieve, use physics to achieve for myself. I realized that since I was young, people talk about Einstein, people talking about Newton, and they lift them up onto a pedestal. You know, if you've been to church, the word is idol. It's somebody we put up there and we sort of worship, and we think they're great, and we just want to be like them. And I realized that I always had either worshipped somebody else, and I feel, yeah, either worship somebody else, and I feel miserable for doing that, because there were a lot of very, very smart people in my field, and professors, and even students, and you look at them all the time, you become very discouraged about yourself. And or the second thing I've always done is to worship myself. Is I want to be a good student, and I want to have all this achievement and do all these great things, so that I can think good about myself. And to some extent I still do that, but there's a balance. But up to that, then I only knew these two choices, and I think both of them were very bad, very bad reasons for pursuing a career. And so through this struggle, God finally showed me that actually there is one person that I should be worshiping, and there is no danger of worshiping, is the God who created the universe himself. And so once I have come to understand that, my not only my life changed, in the sense that my view of work was completely different. I started to be able to worship God through work, and I was able to dedicate my career to God, in the sense that I realized that science is a gift that God has given to us. He not only created the universe, but He gave us the logical thinking and enough clues in the universe so that we can actually put this together and get to discover and understand Him. And using this gift, I can show the marvels wonders of the universe to other people, so they can also marvel at this God that we have. um, so finally, I think that um, I, that was, as soon as I understood that, it really started changing um, my daily life as well. So um, not only do I start to be able to worship God through my work, and finding much more joy and pleasure in it, um, he also started helping me with my work. So, as my friend Rebecca here knows, my one of the sometimes challenging or painful things in my life is that I would write some code and there are bugs in it, which means you write a computer program and it doesn't run, it crashes. And so I have yeah, so I have started to learn to pray to God to help me with those problems, with those bugs and crashes. And what amazes me is that not only does He know this entire universe that He created, He also knows exactly where the bug is in my code that tries to emulate the universe that He created. And not only that, He also knows exactly like what I'm thinking and looking at, so that when my eyes go through the code, like it will somehow just jump to me that line with the bug on it. And so I just very amazed at how He guides me in my work every day, such that right now, really, like I think every day, at least in the last 2 weeks, I spend so much time praying to God every single day about problems in my work, about my work, because I need His help so much. And whenever He helps me, everything just goes so fast and so well. And so I have a lot of joy basically walking through this journey of discovery with Him by my side. And I think that's just the most wonderful thing in the world, because God is, you don't get more better supervisor than that. God is the one who knows the technical thing and is kind enough, and to teach you in the way you need Him to. So yeah, um, I think that I know that however, that my job doesn't stop here. It is not about worshiping God through doing science only. He also gives me a challenge and actually a mission, to go into the university campuses and to share His love with other people through the position, through the work that He has given me, to tell people about Jesus who came to save us, to not just talk about the science with my student, but to show the love of God as well. And He has done so much work in my life in regard to how to treat students, how I'm supposed to relate to them, how I'm supposed to love them, and basically teaching me to love people through, see people through His eyes and love people the way He does. It is very challenging and very humbling, but I'm also very glad to be on this journey. Um, I know that I know that nowadays in the universities, many people are hurrying toward one direction. They're rushing and running so fast and not even looking on the side. And they're just trying to get to the next place and the next place and the next place, not knowing that it actually leads to hell. It leads to a death and destruction of their own lives. And I think this is something that I have experienced when I have worshipped other people, when I have worshipped myself, when I have put the most important things on those people and things that was created. Okay, thank you. I will wrap up in 30 seconds to a minute. When I had put the most important things on created things and people, that is when my life was not going, was not in the right place. But he has given me the ministry and the mission to actually turn others and warn them, to help them to turn around 180 degrees, to have their heart toward God and walk toward God and toward heaven, where you will find true joy and everlasting peace and everlasting life, and basically life eternal with God, not just in this life with all the blessings that I have already experienced and described to you, but also forever in the place where we can be always secure, and safe, in His arms and worshiping Him. So this is basically the journey of my life and the journey of my discoveries of faith and how it relates to my work. And I really hope that you liked it. And please feel free to ask me any questions. I'll be very happy to share more with you. Thank you.